Hello everyone, I think we will start soon in 1 minute. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are calling in from. You might call from Europe, you might call anywhere from Asia. But wherever you are calling in from, you are very welcome to our Tech Talk event. I am Minh Kieu, HR Manager at Adnovum, and I'm the host today. Thank you. So Tech Talk event is a series of the event where Adnovum as a sponsor and the only sponsor will invite the international speaker to share insights the specific topic around the software development world to the engineering community. You might be asking yourself why we choose these topics, the topic of test automations. So we ran actually a survey to the engineering community to connect the need and also the design of learning around the topic. So we listen to you, we listen to the community, and here we are today with two invited speakers with Phuong and Nikita to learn and to discuss more about it. And so why is these two speakers and why they are qualified for the talk? So we contacted and we interviewed a number of volunteer speakers and end up to work with Phuong and with Nikita for the passion of the sharing and also for their experience on this field. So as you know, Phuong with more than 15 years experience working on this field, and Nikita with more than 8 years of experience working on testing automation process on different types of projects. So in the next 1.5 hours, we will learn how automation tests have been evolving over the time, together with a short introduction from both speakers, a presentation, and also some demo. We will have a 10-minute break, short break before we have a Q&A section. So before we start, I would like to give some ground rule so that we have a very good learning section today. Our technical team will mute everyone while the speaker presents and unmute everyone during the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, please submit your question anytime via the Q&A chat box. We will address it during the Q&A sections with both speakers. After this event, we will send a survey, a short survey. Please take part of the survey, helping us to understand what kind of topic that you would like to have for the next event. Last but not least, we are now recording the sections. You will get the recording and also the slide deck after this section. So now let's get some insight from somebody who have been there and who have done the automation field. Please put your hand together and welcome our speaker. Please welcome Phuong, Senior Automation Analyst from Cascal. Please put your hand together and welcome Nikita, Senior QA Automation from RFA. So now I will hand over to our speaker.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Phuong. I've been working 15 years in quality engineering as well as project delivery across telecom, investment banking, payment, insurance, SAS, and data analytics. And my interest is in playing tennis, swimming, traveling, and learning languages. Currently, I'm doing Mandarin. And that's me before doing testing, and that's me after doing testing. 15 years, yeah. So let's looking at how our test automation is evolved. Before we doing that, let's looking at some of the team structure and how the test automation team actually gets involved in these structures. The first one is what you see there is a typical traditional and waterfall models, where the rest later on will be in Agile. So if you look at that number A there, is where we have a project team. Well, when we actually finish a project, then we're nearly finished. When the product is at the stable state, we involve the automation team to actually automate some important test cases. Number B. So I guess mostly at the moment, most of the Agile team actually having this sort of structure. So in the B there, you would have the dev actually doing the unit test, the manual and the BA usually do some kinds of manual, and the automation testing, the automation tester actually gain the input from this guy actually to automate some of the critical test cases. It depends on the Agile maturity there. But see, here is where you start seeing the transforming of the quality of the QA role there, where now it actually the two automation and manual QA become a quality engineer. So it depends on really the maturity here. In some team, you will see actually the quality engineer become some sort of quality coach. They're actually coaching our dev to do better in terms of development, BA doing better in the sort of requirements. Dev actually involved, and they're not only actually doing unit tests, some actually they also being end-to-end tests. But however, in some cases, dev still focus on unit tests. Quality engineer actually doing both manual and end-to-end tests. This alternate where actually this in Scrum team is where everyone doing whatever it takes to deliver. So before we go to the next one, I would like you to help me and the rest of the or the audience to actually answer some of the polls. That would be great. Thank you. So the first question is, which one of the below A, B, C, or D would be your current team structure? Should we go to the next questions?
Yeah, I think so, because we have on the technical team, they just mentioned we have about 80% of the response already.
And the next one is really who actually the most do the most the testing at your organization. Thank you.
So we have 70% of the votes now, 80% now. Let us know when we can show the result.
Okay, cool. That's actually looking great. That majority here, we got B and C's, we actually, most of the company actually start moving to agile now, and it's great to see actually we got a great number there, where actually we start looking at the quality engineer role there. And yeah, okay. Yep. And okay, cool. So majority at the moment, I think the quality QA and quality engineers still mostly doing the testing. However, that's looking great that we start seeing the trend where QA and dev actually sharing the responsibilities there. Thank you. Let's go to the next next slide. So when it's starting, around 1962, there was a paper started on this topic. Then around 70 to 80, there was a software crisis in which actually low quality was part of it. Since then, several tools were created. After that, from the 90 until now, we start seeing several generations of test automation starting. The first one, which you can remember that when actually is about record and playback. So it's just record all the steps that you do, and then it repeat exactly what you do. The second gen start moving more forward, move to data driven and getting easier for our user. So as you see now, actually the fifth gen is now is start using you utilize AI, as well as now it start focusing on full stack automation. So what really full stack automation here it is actually the framework actually support all the tests cross technology and cross platform. In terms of AI, it's a sort of a hard word. It really depends on the framework, but later on I will actually do a demo on a tool that actually utilizes AI and how actually full stack automation being supported. Okay, so what test automation really is. Let's step back and look at what testing really is. Right. So according to ICQB, testing is a process of consisting of all life cycle activities, both static and dynamic, including all of the steps where you do prep as well as you do test management. So what actually static testing is a way of test without invoking the code. And the dynamic testing actually on the other side, that's where you're actually invoking the code. So really what test automation really is actually the use of software to perform or support testing activities. So that's why usually when we talk about test automation, we tend to talk more about just the dynamic execution part. But really it is the entire testing life cycle, including test management, how you design your test, including how you design your test data as well, including as well as execution and result checking. So how I'm going to transition from manual to test automation. So before actually we talk about that, so really, do we really need to actually automate everything? So why automation? How important is it? What are the benefits of it? Let's explore. As you know, right, it's a program. So it's repeatable and help reduce human error, given that the program is well tested. It's run faster than a human. So you can have a shorter run cycle. And because it runs faster, so you have more chance to cover, you can improve your test coverage. And because you are able to improve your test coverage, it actually helps you to, for example, there's some new changes, you can quickly detect if the existing feature have been negatively impacted. So because of that, the company actually able to actually introduce new features, new product to the market faster. And apart from those sort of benefits, just imagine, if you have to actually manually run a set of test cases all over again and again, how boring it's going to be, right? So actually, by using automation, you can actually help the QA focus more on deliver more valuable activities, and improve actually the moral as well as their motivation. Also, I guess some of us might already have heard, knowing, or even been practicing test-driven development or behavior-driven development. BDD is actually really a TDD. It's just focusing more on how the user interact with the product. So what they really are is that the tests are built first, then the code is built to satisfy the test, which means it's passing the test. So what this really means is actually we're doing, actually we build what is needed. That means we are doing more lean development. So we only really deliver what actually required. Let's looking at other perspective where, usually in an organization, you have to maintain a lot of documentation. However, it keep, quickly expired. It's sometimes the information is no longer reflect exactly what actually your system doing. So your test and your code actually is your live documentation. It reflects exactly what your system is doing. So the more tests that you have, the easier for you to understand what exactly your system is doing, whether it satisfies what actually required. And why manual? Actually, it doesn't mean that manual testing is disappearing. It will continue to stay for now. If some tests were only required to be executed for just a few times and the cost to automate them are too high, manual would be, more the choice. Also, sometimes there could be no available tool or framework, or the framework are too costly to test the products. For example, some of the system that worked before, which is Cognos or Tableau, they using their old technology, and it's sometimes really difficult to test. And there is some available tool, however, they're super expensive. Another kind, there's some kinds of technology, as I mentioned to you, as some of actually the technology that I mentioned is you don't have technology to support it, or also your staff, maybe they don't have the skill to actually build or use it. There's some kinds of testing that actually you can't really actually do automation with, for example, usability testing. So what usability testing is to measure how well a specific user in a specific context can use a product or design to achieve a defined goal effectively, efficiently, and satisfactorily. So it needs to actually have some sort of a human interactive, human understanding there. Another kind of a really valuable test is exploratory testing. So what exploratory testing is actually is focusing on the discovery and relying on the guidance of the tester to uncover defects that are not really easily covered in the scope of all the tests. And actually, this is where most of the defects get uncovered here. Yeah, so that would be great if you could help me to actually understand more on some how actually at the moment in your organization, how what's the percentage of actually have been covered by test automation?
We reached to 70% of the response. Would you like to wait for 1 minute more, Phuong?
I think we can go to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some different type actually testing that it can cover by automation. So that would be great if you can, share your what's happening there in your organization.
We got 75% response.
Okay. Cool. So if you see at the moment is what we can see here actually, they're quite minimal actually automation has been done. We got mostly more than less than 10%, and some actually could have reached to 50% or between 30 or 50%. Which I think that's where I guess that's where why everyone here. Right? Okay, cool. So yeah, unit tests, regression tests, great. Quite a lot of actually. There's others as well, so that would be great. We can later we can know more what actually other automation tests actually is covered there. Load test, performance test. Actually, I would expecting actually is mostly actually 100% there because load test and test and performance test mostly have to be done automatically. It's really difficult to do manual in these kinds of testing. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. So what should I do if I want to move to automation from manual? So manual testing is still required. So you can't at the moment you still really can't escape from that. But basically you need to actually choose what actually where you can get the values from. So and the next one would be making sure that your automation, whatever you build, is well tested, because otherwise, you're just going to spend so much time to debug actually on your framework rather than actually what happened with your products. And consider short and long-term goals, making sure that whatever you build, whatever the goal you set to move from manual to automation, it does align with your organization goal and strategies there. And before each of the initiative, automation initiative, making sure that you have a clear set of criteria, which can be, you know, frequent of use of your test, what is complexity, how much you want that you want to automate, what actually at the moment, what tool compatible for you to actually to use. How well, how mature it is in your current test process as well as SDLC. And how currently your SDLC or environment suitable with what you're trying to automate there. So there's a lot of criteria. So you really need to have a clear set of criteria to determine where the manual or automation fit for that initiative. So really, whatever actually you set in your criteria, everything is gonna be going back to, you know, return investment. So what actually return investment is your tangible and intangible costs against whatever the all the tangible and intangible benefits that you get from what you know, invest in. So, however, you know, what you said about intangible cost, intangible benefit, you can't measure it, right? So all of these intangible cost or benefit, you need to convert that to tangible so that you can actually measure and making sure that and understand what is the return investment of how much you pay and for what you get before you start another initiative. Also, making sure that you consistently help the leadership and sponsor to understand the initial cost and the long-term benefit. Because if you see here, sometimes it takes really a period of time for us to realize the benefit that test automation bring. So making sure that you have all of these numbers help the leadership to understand the value that automation could bring to your organization. Okay, before we start that, can we have some more polls? Sorry. So before we're talking about how we actually making that happen, right, making it successful, I would like to understand in your experience, if you actually your organization actually done some certain initiative in terms of implementing test automation, how successful it has been.
So we reached almost 80% of the vote now.
Awesome. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so usually when we start implementing there's a few different challenges, but some of these I think they are the usual challenges that I've seen in the past. So that would be great if we can actually share the experience that you got there.
we reach to 70% response.
Yeah. Maybe wait for maybe another 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, thank you. We can have a summary. Oh, cool. So we got quite low of rate of success at the moment, but actually success it really depends on you know, what success really means. So let's explore actually what really success is, and we can then maybe we can have a share section later on in QA. Yep. So I can see that majority actually is actually spread across you know, staff, skill set, framework, delivery pressure, current processes, procedure, and budget. Cool. Thank you. So let's looking at how we can actually enabling the success. Oh, sorry. So as you see that actually based on what my questions there, you can see look at your right hand side. Those are actually the 5 areas where actually risks and challenges in change management that usually they would be categorized on. So making sure that there's a proper change management strategy in there. And they should address and how they actually can minimize the impact when you actually try to change or resolve these risks or challenges, because they're all connected to each other. When one is impacted, the other will also. So some of the example earlier that I actually list on the poll there, people, for example, you got skill set. People don't like to change as well. Or sometime when, you know, in an organization where there's some, you know, automation initiative that fail, that give people a bad past experience as well. So that actually can prevent you, prevent your next trial or next attempt successful. Another example for culture is fixed mindset rather than growth mindset. Technology, you know, whether that technology actually you have any or all the technology actually you can use or any support technology there that you can use to automate. Processing is your current process is too cumbersome. There are too many layers to get an approval, right? Structure, is it going to work with your current team structure? So look at those sort of risks and challenges, making sure that that continues to be analyzed and mitigate. Okay. Before you actually try to roll out to the entire company, making sure that you pick a pilot project. What it does, it will allow us to learn all of the potential risks or challenges and how we can resolve it. Try to set initial achievable goal. What we really want to get out from this project. You should pick a project with, you know, a length not too short, not not too long, maybe 3 to 6 months. So not too critical, project not too critical, but also not too trivial, right? Do not pick a project that has a fixed release date or on a critical path, because there will be a delivery pressure onto the team, and you might not be able to actually achieve what you really want to get from there. Making sure that you pay attention and try to help the team through their retrospective. If they really need anything, making sure that you are there to support them. So once actually you finish your pilot project, making sure that you sit there, you evaluate whether it's successful or not before you roll it out to the entire company. And when you actually roll out, don't do all at the same time. Rolling out batch by batch, so that you consistently measure how successful or what you can see what the difference between the project or different challenges that maybe one team don't see but the other team experience. Okay. One of the things that we usually see the test automation initiative usually fail or fail to deliver what you expect is actually it's not considered as a project itself. It's sort of on the side, or it's always a secondary project within a project. So we really need to consider test automation as a product itself. Is an internal product. Making sure that their sync of the requirement phases and defect tracking. You really need to track it as a project itself within a project. It's similar like when you build, for example, 2 APIs, right? So if one API need another one, they need to you need to make them sync together. So the same thing when actually you build a test automation or having a test automation initiative, making sure that it's got treated as the same. You need to consider all the interdependency between the test automation initiative with the product initiative as well. And on the second picture on the side, you see there actually that's a recommendation from STQB when you got automation, which is the one on the top right there. When actually running together with the usual SDLC of the project as well as manual. So you can actually have a look at that and try to see how you can fit your test automation initiative there within the project. Okay, the next one is I would like to introduce to you about the generic test automation architect that recommended by ISTQB. So I think some of you might already know this architect. This actually introduced under ISTQB Advanced Test Automation. So I would, so due to time constraint, we'll be doing that into each of the components. But you can actually refer to ICQB and they have all document about this one there. You can refer to that. I will quickly look at talk about some of the recommendation when actually they're building this. So actually, when you build this your test automation framework, you don't really need to build everything in there. Right? So you only build what you really need. So usually when you actually build by yourself, you would be actually build from bottom to top. And when you use off-the-shelf product, that would be from top to bottom. And there's some recommendation from them when you actually building that. So a single responsibility, making sure each of the component only have one single responsibility. extension, making sure that you can extend, you can add more feature, but there should be some restriction on how you're modifying it. Making sure that a component can be, replaced by one or more substituting components. Making sure that when you actually build, you would rather actually build multiple substitute components to do a particular task rather than a generic multiple purposes component. The last one is the component should not depend on a specific test scenario. So when you build, what you really need to consider here, in terms of technical, how actually you're going to interface, how you're going to talk, how your framework talk to your system under test there, what's available for you to interact with it, what actually current data that your system under test has, and how you're going to maintain it, how you're going to create as well. For example, day rolling, how you're going to create new data, whether you should use your test data or some certain place where should you use production data to test. How currently SUT can config, because for example you got environment configuration, so how you actually your framework can interact with this config. Also, you need to focus on standard and legal perspective as well. So for example, I'm working payment, right? So at the moment we build some certain tests that actually can play a real scenario as what happened in production. But however, I'm not, for PCI compliant purposes, we can't really use production card data, for example. So how I'm going to deal with that? I'm making sure that my framework fit with the legal that our company have to abide to. And also, what are tool and environment that we currently have to develop our SUT? How we can reuse what existing tool that we have rather than build something new. And also, in some cases, not all the test interfaces need to be removed from the production environment. So sometimes you want to place some test interface in the production environment so that our support team can actually, for example, they can do some troubleshoot for some certain production issues. So looking at that perspective as well. And the next one is into looking at how your dev and testing processes. How currently test execution happening? Reporting, what sort of report that you need to deliver, who actually using it, how often you need to deliver, for example, in which forms. Whether it's going to be via just a Excel form, can be, or a web interface. So you need to look at those perspectives and which method you want to deliver these report. Role and response and accessibility. So who can do what in your framework? The same thing, whatever what is the current available tool set for you to use. Thank you. Next one, I would like to pass it to Nikita. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Give me a second that I can share from my screen. Okay, hello. I'm full stack UA with experience around the 8 years. I worked on the different types of the projects in web, in mobile, in some other, and mostly focused on optimization of testing process. And because we will be talk about automatization, about frameworks and tools which we can use to our after QA process. At first, we can split all test tools to 3 types. It is UI test tools for web, for mobile, in some cases for desktop. It is a backend and a control framework. And first, we will be talk about the web UI frameworks. Here I present for you the short table, which not include all frameworks for web UI, but it includes the most important of them. And from here, we should be attached to the Selenium framework and Selenium family, and for Cypress and Puppet, because it is have a totally different strategy of execution of testing. And we'll be talk about 2 of them, about Selenium family and about all other frameworks. As the classes of Selenium framework, I think that first it is like a common framework which all automation QA should be know. It has a very large community. It very old, but it is still very useful. And it is very common framework, which is really needed to understand that UI automation process. And about classes, that first of them, it is that Selenium supported all browsers which we have. Not all, most of them. It is Chrome, Firefox, it is Safari, and all other like Internet Explorer, and it is a big pluses of this family. Secondary, it is support different program languages, and it is easy if you know one of program language to start work with Selenium. And as a plus, we can say that Selenium, because it is very old feature, it already have a big count of the integrations about additional tools which can help you with your work. But it also have a minuses, and the first of them, it is stability of Selenium. Because we should be care all time about drivers, because when we work with Selenium, Selenium work with browser between the driver, and we should be care about it every time because we need each browser for each driver for each browser and for each version of browsers, and it is not so easy to support. And also it is managing environments from our side. We should prepare browsers on which we will run tests, suits, and so on. What if we talk about others like Cypress, about Puppet, it have the first common plus is that it have a browser in complete, which is very helpful because we don't need to set up our environment because it is already included in the package. And it is a second plus that it is that have many, not many, it have great debugging tools inside of the Cypress and inside Puppet, which very helpful on execution and on the development of testing. Also, one of the pluses that with Cypress, we can work with the React framework as with white box and implement testing inside of our UI web project. And also it is stable execution because we already have browser in complete. But it also have minuses. It is a low count of the browsers because most of them was supported only Chrome. And it's not so big community because still Selenium is more popular tool than all other. In this table, I try to show for you the most common mobile UI frameworks, and here we should keep attached to the Appium because it is very similar with Selenium and Espresso and execute as native testing. And now we talk about what is white and black box, because in previous slide you can see that test strategy is totally different. For Appium it is black box, for Espresso and execute it is white box. And what does it mean? It is mean that when we work with with Appium, we have some internal service between our test scripts and between our environments. And it is means that when we work with interface of application, it have some Doom tree, which is not real, but it is what Appium create for us, that we can make any actions on our application. And about black box, about white box. Previously was black box, sorry. About white box, when we talk about white box, it just means that we work with elements which inside of the applications. And what is the pluses of the native frameworks? First of all, it is fast execution and stable execution, because it is work only with our application. It don't have something internal services, because we don't have any problems with execution, with stable of that. And also it is supporting from platform company, because Espresso, it is product of Android, and execute it is for iOS, and it is supported from these companies. But we have big minuses for native testing, and first of that, it is cost of development of testing, because how you can see in the table, it's supported only languages which include to the ecosystem. Like for Android, it could be Java or Kotlin and no more, and same for iOS. And second minus, it is one platform. If you have if your application based on two platforms, on iOS and Android, you should be care about to make the totally different tests for different platform. But Appium don't have these minuses, because at first it is have very easy structure like Selenium, and if our application on iOS and Android platform has a similar interface, it is very easy to develop one type of the test cases which will be used on two platforms, and we don't need to make more. Also, we have a minuses for Appium too, because it is slow execution first, because and sometimes if our development team don't care about creating some different IDs for elements, we will use to expand, and it will be executing too slow, and it is many different reasons why it is much slower than native frameworks. And also it is unstable, because we have provider between our environment and the test, and it can be some issues at the time of execution. But if you have good hands, it is not a problem to make it stable. It is important. What we can talk about control frameworks. It is just frameworks and tools which managing execution process of test. It is managing parallelism of testing, about logging, about all other things, how our test will be executed and process of executing. It is totally different for different kind of the language. And when you choose something, you should be at first thinking about which language you will be used for your test scripts. And API testing. API testing, it is common thing. It is not so much what we can talk, but we have 3 different types of API testing in automatization. First one, it is basic API tools, like some libraries for each language, where you just make requests. How it's here present, it is just common thing, a post request to our service. Second, it is some tools which have UI, which very common to use if you don't have experience in programming, but it can be save some specs with API testing, and it can be very useful for not so big projects because you can save all your requests and repeat it at any time which you want. And last part, it is load testing. For that, it usually used Gatling or Gmeter or something other tools. And we should care about this when for us, for our project, it is important to know how our product work on the big load. And also, when we talk about frameworks, we should be reminded about multi-frameworks, which can be very useful in the different companies and the different products. What is mean multi-frameworks? It is some kind of framework which combine different tools inside, like tools for web testing, for mobile testing, for API testing, and it is already include some reports, some management tools, and so on. And as best example of that, it is Catalan or Axel Q, about which Phuong will be tell a little bit later. And when we talk about why we should use multi-frameworks, we should understand that it is very easy to start implementation automation testing. You usually don't need some big skills in programming because, for example, Catalan have recording tools that you just can click by your website or by your mobile application, and it all will be recorded and you can repeat it. Also, it is that all your tests in one place, and it is vendor support. Of course, vendor support because all of these tools is not free. They have a cost, and you should pay. And also, as minuses, we should understand that it is low flexibility. Because you couldn't include something more than already inside of these multi-frameworks. And second section, it is integration process, because after that we understand how we create our framework, how we'll be execute our tests, we should understand how we'll be integrate it to our development process. And first of all, we should understand what is CI/CD is mean. You just should remind this Schebler, what is it, and what about we should be KSQA. It is about blue column about testing. It is our area. And when we talk about integration, first about what we should think in about where we'll be execute our test. And at usual, we have just 2 options for that. First one, it is own environment, which we will be managed at all. And you can use different tools for that, like Docker, for example, and outsource environments like browser stack, which prepare for us our environments on which we will be execute testing. As a pluses of the own environment, it is self-control and setup of environment. You will know all what happened in your environment, which can be a plus. Secondary, it is that you of course can control environment in full. Third, it is privacy in some application like banking application on some other ways very critical to don't share some test data. It is very important to be care about privacy and less cost in some cases, because it is not only pluses, it is minus too, because if we want to try grow up our environments, it can be a high cost of the environment. Also, as a minuses, you of course should have in your team DevOps, or you should have DevOps knowledge to support all of them, and of time preparation this environment, because it is taken time. How you can understand. What we can about outsource environment, it is that this environment's usually stable, because it is money which they get as these services get from us. For a stable environment, because they care about it and you don't need care. It is a diversity of environments at usual. For example, browser stack have all supported all browsers, all mobile platforms, and you should not care about it. Also, it is scalability, easy setup process, because it is very common to just read the documentation, how it is made, and also support from the vendor. But as a minuses, it is high cost, because for all of that you should pay, and low privacy, because you could not control your data. You share it for the service, and you could not be sure that nobody catch it. But it is also only critical if you have something banking application, something like that. And secondary, about what we should talk, it is execution. At usual, we should be care about parallel execution. We have two strategy of that. It is coverage strategy, where we run all our tests on the different environments, and speed strategy, where we execute one by one test for each environment, which can make our execution process much faster than usual. And the good strategy, it is combine two of them to your own project. And now I prepare some demo. I just catch something from my current work for that. And first of all, about what I can show for you, it is a page object pattern, which I usually use, and it is the most common pattern for for creating your test your test project. And what about we should see here? It is, first of all, it is page object folder, which which collect all files with description of pages, with functions, with locators, and so on. Second one, it is fixtures, where we collect all our test data, and helpers, where we collect our steps or verification steps or something other things which could be reusable. And last one, it is specs folder, which contained our specs which we will be execute. If we talk about page project model, we should understand that it is very scalability thing, and it is very flexible to grow up our project. And third, second thing about which I want to show. It is how I execute my tests. It is a simple Shebellow Z, and how we can see that at first we preparation backend. In my case, it is preparation mock for. It is not mock. It is fork of a blockchain network. After that, we run this mock. After that, we start executing one by one all our specs. After that, work case to case, and in case if all success, we go to the report. If something went wrong, we skip all next cases and move to the report. And after that, we just stop our mock. And 1 second, I will show how it works in live. For that, I need to change my screen for another one. It is what I catch from current framework. How you see it is fixtures, helpers, and we can move inside of the each of folders for each of files and see what is collect page object files, and how I told it is locators. It is different functions for the pages, and it is all. And what about fixtures? It is test data, which here just in JSON. About steps, it is combined steps which I reuse it at any specs and any test suits. And last one, it is test suite. I committed most of steps because it take too long time to execution, but I show how this works just on 2 steps, and of course preparation. And I will just run it. It should be. At first, it run browser. It makes some preparation with Chrome extension, which is needed for executing. It is setup of the Tenderly network, which used a smoke. Now we make some additional things. And right now it is already connection to our project, and right now we'll be run our specs, what we will be testing. And it is was 2 simple step. It is first it is deposit in platform, and second one it will be borrow. It will be to borrow because it is have 2 different options to borrow. And now we get our result. It is a very simple test report. Usual I'm using different, but it is like example that it is we see that all 9 steps was passing and all is okay. And I think it is all what I want to show. Phuong, I think it is your turn.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Nikita. Share my screen. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna quickly show you an off-the-shelf test automation platform that our company Cuscal have been actually adopt for the last 1 year. So let's first start talking about full stack test automation, right? So as full stack automation, what it defines is can cross technology, cross platform. So what you can see right here is that in the same platform here, you can actually test and interact with different platform. I'm giving you an example of, for example, a particular end-to-end test that this tool actually can use. For example, Cuscal providing our external client and the ability for them to create a new credit card or a new just replace existing credit card, for example. So the flow is that the customer would actually sending a request from their mobile, right? And then that request actually going to our vendors. Our vendor actually send a request to us, and from there we process, and then from there we will pass that into an internal website. That's where our customer, which is another a particular bank, can actually approve or reject that request. And once actually got that approved, we process and then we issue the card, and the card status we will update and allow the customer to see what is the status of the card. So for us to actually testing that, we need to interact first with mobile application. We need to make sure we need to mimic the API testing between our customer or client, which is an institutional bank, and then we need to make sure that whether that sort of request can be viewable by a web application by our client, and also in terms of checking the database whether the data reflect exactly what we want. So that's where we need to touch in different places there. So in here, actually, if you see here, they already actually have built-in different libraries for us to interact with. At the moment, the one I'm showing you here is not mobile enabled. Is the testing for mobile app is not enabled, but this tool actually enable you to actually do mobile testing here as well. In here, you can actually have different util to interact with different kinds of database. You can work with Unix or as well as Windows as well. So sort of you can interact with different platform, different technologies there. In terms of AI, so as I mentioned, it's a sort of hybrid. So I'm going to show you what actually is achieved in XLQ. So I'm going to have a look. So actually, about to reduce the demo time, actually I have rerun this sort of this test earlier. So if you see here, there's a test on the login page. Actually, we check actually the link whether the sign in button, whether it meet the expectation. So you see actually it's failed. And if we can see here, actually it's telling you actually where it's failing here with all the pictures or the screenshot is automatic capture. And the first feature that I want to show you actually is self-healing. So what self-healing mean is here, for example, this is the case where I run when self-healing is on. And that step actually is, instead of actually is fail, actually it pass, but it allowed, but actually it's highlight here. So what you actually can see here is, so it's quite easy, it's quite difficult to see that, but here you see here. So you can see that actually the button is there, but the difference here is the expected value of that button is the tag input, and the type is submit. But at the runtime, actually, instead of input is a button. Right. So these are sort of it's trying to so instead of self-healing, it's trying to looking at what actually whether there's some trivial issues it can actually just pass but it still allow you to see what are the difference there. So this actually bring the value when you when there's a huge set of test cases and like there's some significant change and you don't spend so much time and try to rebuild all the test case again. The next part is how it can actually automatically detect which command, which interaction that it can do on a particular element. So I can show you here. So this is on the login page as well. So it has been captured with all the elements of that particular page. So I'm gonna expand that. For example, I'm gonna click on that username text box. And if you see here, this actually is giving me different suggestions of different action I can do on that particular text box. So that's one of the cases I'm actually using. Another part is we can talk about automatic create test cases. So it's actually it utilize the features of parameterization. So I'm going to open one. Sorry, it's a bit lagging here. Okay. So I'm going to delete all of them. And I'm going to use that feature to automate generate the test cases. You see here, actually, when looking at different, some of the certain configuration is actually allow us to do a mix and match of different type of, for example, the account, as well as the where you want to send that money to. So in fact, you can select all of these where if you think that all the combination is that what you want, or you can actually select what some of the, and then we automatically generate the test cases for you. Yeah. So basically, in the level that would have scenario, say there, for example, a verify login context, which I'll show you a little bit later. But under a particular scenario is actually multiple action. If you see there, it's the test step there. So each of the test step actually a particular actions, and an action is consists of different command. Right. So if you see here, it's sort of solving some of the challenge that we got in terms of upskilling our non-technical testers, or actually can actually allow BA to actually create test case directly from here as well. One of the things that actually is quite good for our manual tester to use is that they can start practicing and learning about programming, sort of the way how you do programming. So in here, so each of these steps, if you just imagine that it's like a method, right? And you can actually call another method as well. So for example, when you trying to for example, say sometimes you have different test cases, or you want to reuse a particular step, you can actually call it. Sorry, this one is actually, I'll show you another features, but I'm going back to this one actually. It's allowed me to edit with this one. So you can actually call you can also, like do a loop and for loop, etc. So it's quite similar like what when we coding. So yeah. So I think it's automatic. I think I just quickly click on it, so it's a bit so for example, call, and it automatically any suggestion, or you wanna actually do something like, for example, as not call something. Yeah, for example, it's automatic. It tries to detect what you're trying to type in there. And one of the features you can check in out, so you can actually manage, and you can actually manage the version. You can do version control. So for example, if someone using it and you building at the same time, it allow you to have two versions. So you still building and you can test what you're building, while other people can use the previous, the current version. And once you actually, when you check in or check out, it will require you to do comments, and whether you can undo check out. Undo check out is remove whatever you have put in. You check in, actually it start committing your whatever you changed there. One of the part that actually this particular platform is quite useful is allow you to extend. So extension is one of the recommendation from, when I had go through earlier from ISTQB, where you should be able to extend. And this is quite like, there's quite a lot of off-the-shelf platform doesn't allow you to extend, and this one allow us to do so much. So one example that actually I've done in my current company is actually it's allowed me to use Apache Spark to actually do big data processing. So I can actually extend that features. I can actually build additional, for example, the way how we deliver reporting as well. And also, if you see how, as what I have to show you earlier, is allow you to building your test in at the same time or even before actually the code finish. So for example, you can have your QA, you can have your BA to write on with all the tests, and then our developer can actually just test their code again, these kinds of tests that you built. Apart from that, you can do traceability. If you see here, actually I'm going back. You can actually interact with different other project management tool. For example, you can actually interact with Jira. So in here, for example, this scenario, and it can actually link to one or multiple user story on your particular on your Jira. And what it does allow you to do is that you can have a view when you have your test suite. So the way how AxleQ allows you to set up your test suite is quite flexible. You can manually add in whatever the requirements that you want to, for example, requirement base. Here you see here for each of the sprint, you can actually say, okay, that sprint we want to deliver this particular user story. You can come in there and you can have a look, and when actually you run it, you can see how that the progress for that particular sprint. I'm just going to this one, for example. And you will be able to say, the progress, what thing was failed, as well as because this one is it linked to user story. I think I may have a scenario. Okay, sorry, I'm going back in this. Going to Spring. Yeah. So in that one, you can see here, for example, for that particular sprint, you can see the progress of how the dev status of that particular user story against what the test actually got linked to it, and you can actually raise a defect directly from here as well. So it interact with Jira, and also the way how it can deliver the result. It can by email, or you can integrate with apart from that, they provide different API that you can call, and you can actually build something for yourself as well. You can pull all the status for particular sprint or particular test case, etc. Also, I think Nikita did show you around CI/CD. So this allowed you to integrate with CI/CD as well. And another part here, which is giving you an overview of, for example, when you, for a particular scenario, what is the flow of which page, for example, this one is, it's got what sort of page or what sort of API, how they interact with each other. And also it's highlight what scenario actually had the problem. So you can actually have a look at that, what's going on there. And that very much, and I can show you further if you have any question around this tool too. Thank you.
Thank you, Phuong. Thank you, Nikita, for the presentation. So as a plan, we now have a short break so that our speaker can prepare for the Q&A. So we receive many questions, so we will prepare and then we will come back in 10 minutes to address any questions having from you.
Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. My heart is in Havana, Havana, ooh, na, na. Just graduated fresh on campus. Fresh out East Atlanta with no mountains down. Fresh out East Atlanta, up on board like a traffic jam. Man, I was quick to pay that girl like Uncle Sam. He go, hey, bring it on me. Hey, try to credit on me, get the beating on me. She waited on me, then try to cake it on me, got the bacon on me. This is history in the making on me. Point blank, close range, that's me. If it goes a million, that's me. I was getting moolah, baby. Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. My heart is in Havana, Havana, ooh, na, na. Take me back, 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 take me back, back, back. Take me back, back, take me back, back. Take me back to Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. My heart is in Havana, Havana, ooh, na, na. Havana, ooh, na, na. Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. There's something about his manners. Havana, ooh, na, na. He didn't walk up with that, how you doing? When he came in, he said there's a lot of girls I can do it. But I can't wait to do it forever in a minute. That's all my like it. Papa says he got Milo in him. He got me feel like ooh. I knew it when I met him. I loved him when I left him. Got me feeling like ooh. And then I had to tell him I had to go. Oh na 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 na. Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. Never had much faith in love or miracles. Never wanna put my heart up and hide it. But swimming in your world is something spiritual. I'm gonna get every time you spend the night. 'Cause your sex takes me to paradise. Yeah, your sex takes me to paradise and shows. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. Oh, to love. Oh, You bring me to my knees, you make me testify. You can make a sinner change his ways. Open up your gates, 'cause I can't wait to see the light. And right there is where I wanna stay. 'Cause you say take me to paradise. Yeah, you say take me to paradise and show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause you make me feel alive. I've been like that heaven. Oh, to love. Oh, to love. Yeah, you make me feel alive. I've been like that heaven. Oh, to love. Oh, to love.
Welcome back, everyone. So now we will start the Q&A sections with our speakers. We will ask our technical team to share the screen so that we can address the questions. So we actually received many questions during the presentation from both speakers. The first question I would like to address now is go to our speaker, Phuong.
Yep.
We would like our technical team to share the question here because the person who asked the question would like us to share it. And so the first question is, what is a sign of company that should have automation tests instead of manual tests?
Yeah. Actually, the company size doesn't actually determine whether you should do test automation or not. It's more about what's the value of test automation can bring to your company. It could be like, you know, like for example, if I want to, if I want to have my own company, I want to spin up an application, right? I would rather actually, for me, actually, I want to try I want to do some unit tests, some integration tests on myself, because basically I'm building and I'm coding, I'm testing as well. So it doesn't mean that, you know, one company with 1 or 2 person doesn't need to have test automation. So, and also in terms of, you know, for a company, a big company, they might not have, you know, many changes. So why do they need to actually, then how often they're going to do a test? So that's more looking at what the value, how much actually the company, what the benefit they can get versus what's the cost involved. So yeah, to me, the company side doesn't determine whether you should do automation or not.
Okay, thank you. The next questions from the audience is Tuấn Max, and Tuấn Max would like to address the question directly to you. Maybe our technical team will unmute Tuấn Max now so that he can address the question directly. And Max over here.
Unmute. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, can hear me right? This is Don. My question to both of you is about one issue that I face when I try to write automated tests for web projects. So one of the issue I have is it's not listed here, the question, but I will just say it. So this issue hurt me twice. So it's about issue with identifying web objects on the screen. So sometime when there are real big tests that I have to write and it's run for quite a long time, for example, 20 minutes, or can be 10 minutes. And if a step fail in the late phase, so I will have to run it again to rewrite the test to overcome it. So let's say later, if I run the test and it's failed on the server, then it takes a lot of time to reproduce that. So what is the strategies to write a good test there, or is there any tool to help to the test to recover from such error? Because sometimes the error is just about network latency, for example.
It is mostly sounds about that you have problem with your staging environment. But when we talk about different types of issues, at first we should recognize where it's happened. Because if we talk about UI testing, it two types. First one, it can be happened inside of your application, which can be not issue, but can be that it is issue, and you should be recognize what is directly happened in each cases. Maybe you just have some problem with waiters of some elements or some other things. But in your case, I think it is mostly probably related with second thing, that you have problem with your environment, because if you have some long response or something like that, it is not problem of testing, it is problem of in your case, you just should go to the DevOps guys who supported it, or to the development team, and just talk with them about what happened. Can we make our environment much more stable?
Yeah, I want to actually add that I agree with Nikita. So I think if you're looking at the consideration that I've listed earlier, right? So the environment that you try to test is quite important. So so actually you can't, for example, if you got different environment with different configuration, for example, the same thing you can run is so painful, it's really painful for you to try to automate. For example, I've got some earlier I got some sort of a problem where the infrastructure, for example, when you get on cloud, the way how they authenticate different, on-prem they authenticate different, UAT, the way how they configure different, on broad they do differently. So this way you need to make sure you try to streamline your environment, working closer with your infra team. Yeah.
Thanks. So maybe is lead to a more related question. If I have many different environment, but with just a slight change between them, so should I try to write a test that fit all, or I should just write a test for only one environment, the one that close to production?
This depends from by which reason you have many environments. If you deploy, if you use it as for each feature, I mean that each environment for each features, it means that it should be quite similar, and in this case it should execute it everywhere. But if you try to produce on different environments different custom things like location or maybe something else, in this case, I think it's better a way to just adaptate your test to the different environments, because it sounds like not so complicated to just make some specific setups for each environment and a little bit adapt to each steps.
yeah, try to align your environment as much as possible. And also, I think Nikita talked about how you can use Docker or some other tool to virtualize your environment, so you can actually have the same setup across different environments.
Okay, thanks. So I go to my last questions, the one that have been shared. So what is the strategies to deal with dynamic data? Or I like to say about some data you can only get while the system is running, for example, the daytime of the system.
It is an easy question. If you work with dynamic data, you should in your test it should be adapted for your environment. It means that at first you should catch all data which will be tested. After that, make some action with this data, and after that recheck. For example, if you have some calculation and first variable, you don't know which one, but you know which is plus for this variable. You can understand which you will get at final result.
I mean, for some test related to date and time, for example, you can really just free the time or reset the time on the system. Right?
Yes, data and time it is same. You have to weigh. It is the first one you can same just catch from your environment date and time. Second one, you can if you have possibility to handle it, I mean set up your environment before, you can set up it.
So you mean try to use an environment that we can change, right? Or try to do offset test?
Yeah. The second way to when you make some pre-setup for your environment. For example, if you need some data tomorrow, for example, before the execution test, you send some request to your server which updated the data.
Okay, I think I get some idea from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuấn, for the questions, and thank you, Phuong and Nikita. So we go to the next question. The next question is for Phuong. So there's one audience. When you were mentioning about the Model C,
yeah. So Model C, that's where you can start seeing the transition into a quality engineers. Yep. So there's the title itself reflect really it's no longer like QC or QA is a quality engineer. So you are going to looking at quality from at the technical perspective as well. And in some company, for example, Atlassian, they have a term called quality assistant. So it really depends on how your company define that role. But to me, in a particular Scrum team, to be honest, doesn't really matter what the title is, but more in terms of who do what best. So for example, for a quality engineer, so their mindset is and their skill is about looking at different perspective, how you can improve quality in terms of your code, in terms of requirement, etc. So so looking at your so try to looking at what that skill set can do, let them do it. And for example, in the past, where actually I myself was hands-on, I myself working with 10 developers. So I'm a quality engineer there, but that doesn't mean that actually I am there and I sit down and code or build a test automation. I didn't. My by dev, actually, they do most of the test automation. So what I did was I look at requirement, trying to clarify, help them to clarify the requirements, trying to, and also actually what I do is I try to improve our developer where they actually they were a weakness as well. So what I do is actually I profile them. So I was looking at, okay, what they usually make mistake, where they usually make mistake. So when I'm looking at a particular user story, looking at a particular requirement, I know where they make mistake at that part. So I try to highlight and focus on, hey, can you making sure you're looking at this part and that part. And also I try to work with them. I'll try to give them as early as possible all the tests that they should be covered when they build. So that's my experience. In terms of, I myself working with 10 dev, but also it really depends on your team skill set, your QA skill set. So it's more like getting your QA, your quality engineer focus on more quality and let the dev do their best. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope it answers your questions.
Thank you. But now we go to the next question. We still have probably address a few more questions. The next question goes to Nikita. So the person asks, my company currently using Flutter to develop the native app. We run into issue with it really difficult to locate the element. Do you have any suggestion for it? And that's white box testing will have on this case.
Yeah, it is a really very usual problem with Flutter or with React Native. First, it will be helpful if you will be use white box testing with some native tools. But also you have option to work with Appium. For that, you need to be you should talk with your developer guys and ask them that they put IDs for each element which you needed in your testing. Because Appium, when he make his Doom tree, he catch some elements, some identifiers of elements, and IDs it is the much fastest way to execute something. And if you have option to work together with development team, it is better way. If you don't have that, maybe you should think about switch to native testing.
Thank you, Nikita. So we would have one or two more questions to address. The next question going to Phuong. Yes, so this person addressed directly to you. Can you share what the restrictions when modifying this component in automation framework?
So restriction on modifying existing framework, right? So I think this talking about the components. So when you're building something, right? What particular thing, for example, some certain features, and if at the moment, someone or some other test is already being used, when you're trying to modify, just see what the impact's gonna be. Right, so try to say, yeah, it doesn't mean that there's restriction, but it doesn't mean that you cannot change. But try to think of whatever, if you change it, how it's gonna impact the existing test. So that's why when you build, and there's also that to talk about, how you can extend, but you can modify. So for particular features and for that particular component, if you want to decommission, for example, how impact's going to be as well. How you write the backward compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phuong. So please allow me to address one last question. We have actually many questions in the list, but the time actually not allow us to go through all. So the last question go to Nikita. The full stack test equal to end-to-end tests?
No, it is yes and no. It is also depends from the project. Because the kind of project can be very different. It can be just mobile application, and in this case, it will be enough end-to-end testing. It will be full coverage. But if we talk about some multi-system which have totally big backend, have web version, have mobile version, it will not, because you should be okay about testing server part, because it can be shared data for some internal systems. And you could not see all the data, all functions of the server side on your UI side.
Okay. Does Phuong have anything to add into these questions?
Yeah, I think I'd answer this question on the Q&A chat there. So it's really simple. Full stack test automation. It means you can actually interact within the same test. You can actually interact with different and cross-platform. So it doesn't mean that you're going to do it end to end. Maybe something you want to do it in the middle, but when you actually interact, cross-platform, cross-technology.
Okay, so good, thank you. So I think it's the last questions here. Our time is up for today. We actually have quite many questions left in the list, but with the limited of the time, we need to end the sections. So our Adnovum team and our technical team will actually send this to our speaker and to provide directly the information to you later. And in addition to that, with the permissions of our speaker from both Phuong and Nikita, you can always contact them via LinkedIn for any further questions on this topic. Please be reminded that we will send out the survey right after this. Please take part of the survey and helping you to understand what kind of topic that you would like to hear for the next event. The recording of this event and also the slide deck from both speakers will be published available for everyone under our YouTube channel and also in our website. We will also send you the link afterward. So on behalf of Adnovum and on behalf of our organization team, we would like to say thanks again to our speaker, to Phuong, to Nikita. Thank you for taking time away from your family, from your friend, to invest time to share with us. Again, thank you for everyone for your participation today. Without you, there would be no event. We will now end the sections. I wish everyone a good night and very good weekend. I look forward to seeing everyone again in our next event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Talk to you soon later.
Thank you for sharing. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.